Alright, moving on to our next comic review, and this time around we're going to be talking about Vengeance of the Moon Knight, Volume 1, New Moon. This is the continuation of Jed MacKay's Moon Knight saga, and this was sent to me by my friend Chris. Chris, thank you once again. And yeah, so like I said, this is the next chapter in the Moon Knight storyline, which should be, in single issues it should be ending, but I'm reading it in trade, so yeah. So, if you, for a bit of context, because I don't think I covered all the Jed MacKay's Moon Knight. At the end of the first series of Moon Knight, what happened was Mark was killed, sacrificing himself, stopping a villain known as Black Spectre's attempt to kill most of Manhattan. Now, because of this, you'd think, oh well, Khonshu will just bring him back. The problem is that at the time, Khonshu was locked up by the Asgardians because of the whole thing in Jason Aaron's Avengers run. So he only had enough power to bring back Hunter's Moon, and even Khonshu told him, hey, I can't bring you back this time because my powers are sapped from being locked up in Asgard. So, Mark is dead, and weirdly enough, someone else has taken on the title of Moon Knight. Now, as to who that is, I'm not going to tell you. And I will say this, you can guess all goddamn day, you ain't gonna figure it out unless you read the book. Or look on Google. Either one's fine. It's the last guy anyone suspected. It is quite literally the last guy anyone suspected to take on the mantle of Moon Knight. And in a weird way, it almost makes sense. That's the weird part. That's what I like about Jed MacKay's writing, is that here's a dude who loves writing these characters and bringing new life to, like, D and C-list characters. I mean, he's done a lot of work for 8-Ball. He's given 8-Ball so much character now, it's funny. But yeah. So the first 4 issues are talking about Moon Knight supporting characters. Reese, the vampire, Tigra, his lover, Soldier, the ex-Hydra agent turned a vampire, who worked for Mark, and finally Hunter's Moon, Dr. Badir, who was in the faith the brother of Mark Spector, not by blood, but like his faith and brother. Basically, Hunter's Moon was like, you know, we're both sons of Khonshu, therefore you're my brother, even if you drive me nuts. So that it follows these 4 issues and is all of them sitting on the couch talking to Dr. Sternman, Mark's therapist that was given to him by the Avengers, who would keep tabs on him. Now, the other thing is that we're slowly piecing together who this unknown Moon Knight is, as other characters try to figure it out, as well as they try to cope with Mark's death. It would have been interesting to see, like, maybe give 8-Ball, and maybe they will in the second trade, but like to give 8-Ball a issue so they can talk about like the 5 stages of grief. But yeah, it's only focusing on these 4 characters. I do really like how Jed MacKay gets into their heads, especially like Tigra, who talks about all of her exes, like her first love, who was this guy who had his own idea of what a wife should be, then her relationship with Hank Pym and how Ultron destroyed that, and finally Mark, her relationship with Mark Spector. Yeah. I really enjoy just the back and forth and all these characters dealing with grief, and it's kind of nice to see like a funeral story. I do like how they bring up that Mark is Jewish, so they're like, we don't know how to do a Jewish funeral, and Khonshu isn't here anymore, so we can't give him last rites in the name of Khonshu. So they literally contact Ben Grimm to give a funeral, like to give a proper Jewish funeral for him. And even Ben is like, yeah, I can see what I can do. And even they're like, sorry, dude, we did it, like you like we didn't want to bother. He's like, it's okay. And I like the attention to detail with this funeral, where Ben gives the procession, and as part of tradition, after a person dies in Jewish culture, you're not the immediate family isn't allowed to do anything for 7 days. Well, obviously the Midnight Mission needs to protect people at night, but they can't do anything to more with for 7 days. However, the superhero community keeps them covered for a good 7 days while they're in mourning. This is a comic about grief. This is a comic about loss and how one deals with it, which is something I feel like has been sorely missing in a lot of death of character comics. I feel like this covers it in a very thoughtful way, and I'm sure Volume 2 continues that, especially when you find out who this Moon Knight, this new Moon Knight is. And it just is another great chapter in Jed MacKay's Moon Knight. Jed MacKay's Moon Knight's probably one of my favorite books over at Marvel, and I cannot wait to see what he does with Moon Knight next. So thank you once again, Chris. This was awesome. I've been loving everything Jed MacKay's a fucking workhorse over at Marvel. I gotta be honest. He's fucking like buckling down and getting all this stuff done as fast as he can. He's doing Avengers. He's doing Doctor Strange. He's doing Moon Knight. He's doing X-Men. He's doing all these things, and God knows what else they'll put him on next. So yeah. Anyway, if you've been reading Jed MacKay's Moon Knight, this is just another great pickup for you. And Chris, thank you once again. Thank you for this book. And other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.